here we go. What we want to do is, let me do this quick. Okay, cool. So today we're going to talk about how to read people very fast. How the FBI teaches you to read people very fast, right? And so I'm going to be showing that today. And again, I went through the FBI crisis hostage negotiation, part of the profiling, yada, yada, yada. I've been in this world, the NLP and the hypnosis world, 40 years as licensed psychologist for 30 now, or 28 or 30. And I reviewed, I went back through Chase Hughes' profiling thing. So I try to give credit where I got a lot of this. And a lot of this based on Chris Voss's work, who was the lead negotiator at the FBI for quite a while. Anyway, you probably already felt this, right? You read the room wrong. You said yes when you probably should have probed deeper. You felt manipulated. I can relate to all this, talking to realtors this week about my house in Indiana and what to do, and yada, yada, yada. And of course, someone tells you what you wanted to hear, and it could turn out to be true. That's happened a couple of times this week, right? And conversation goes sideways, right? So Chris Voss, like I said, he was the lead kidnap negotiator for the FBI for, I think, 8 years. So he's got a good book, Never Split the Difference. I recommend it to everybody. And it's really good, and I think I met him in passing when I was at the academy for that course I was sitting through. But let's flip it over to why most people only get half of it on either side. Mr. Voss teaches what he calls mirroring. We would call it pacing and leading, right? But in a different way, right? Especially verbally, In the NLP hypnosis world, physical things, we match different things. He says that somewhat, but mainly mirror what the people are saying to you exactly or as close to as they said it, right? Don't paraphrase, right? So it's kind of cool. And he uses what they call labeling, right? And that's basically state elicitation, and if someone looks upset, you say, you look upset, or you seem upset. It seems like you're upset. You never say, I think, because that makes it about you. It's always like, Patrick, looks like you're having a great day, whatever it happens to be. One of the things I like that he points out is that they teach, it's called the accusation audit, where you basically say, Bruce, I know you're probably going to think something like, I'm going to do a hard sell at the end of this. And you know what? I might. Right? So if you preempt it, it's the preemptive strike, to use, our friend Billy's world, right? But you're basically laying out there what they're probably thinking, right? And what you're going for, he calls it the that's right close. And it's an embedded yes set. The yes set does not work. That how they still teach you sales, get one yes, get another yes, a third yes, then they're going to say yes to something else. Well, most of us as adults have been trained sometimes to say yes just to get somebody to shut up, right? Just like the thing you don't want to hear is, you're right, right? What you want to hear from someone is, that's right. Because that's a full buy-in. You could be right about a lot of things, but it doesn't mean I believe it, But when someone says that's right, and Chris Voss calls it calibrated questions. We call it meta model probes. What exactly do you mean by this? What would this do for you? How will you know when you have it? All the things that we teach. One of my favorites is social needs, or social psychological needs. And basically he broke it down, a guy named Chris Hughes, a Navy guy. And he did a lot of work for other agencies, from what I understand. But he when they're reading people, it's like, is a person driven by significance? Now you got to remember, if you're in the intelligence world and they're trying to flip you to come to our side or to sell out or to do something, what's going to drive them to do it? What are they looking for? Are they looking for significance? Are they looking for approval? Are they looking for acceptance? Right? Are they looking for intelligence, to be seen as smart? You know? Um, and there's some cool stories about how they flipped a lot of intelligence assets when the Soviet Union was starting, right, was starting to crumble, right? Uh, General consensus was nobody saw it coming, but the intelligence community, some of them did. So they'd approach an asset and say, Bruce, you're a smart guy. You can see that this Soviet empire is not going to last, right? And so the smart people are coming over now, not later, right? Sometimes people are driven by pity, but it's mainly to gain control, feel sorry for me. And then some people are driven by strength, right? They want to be dominant, right? And some of these kind of go together, significance and strength. You see people, they want to be significant and seen as strong. Just look at the political landscape, both sides, that's what's driving people. Other people, the approval and acceptance kind of goes together, right? Some, they're very close. Pity's off by itself, and intelligence kind of is a driver in other ways. But it's like, what's driving people? If once you figure that out and you begin to read people very quickly, a significant person might have a Rolex on, and they'll make sure that you see it. You know, um, in a world where Mr. Bruce used to run, they'd have to flash their whatever a big diamond carat would be, right? It's like, oh, they're just significant, or tell you who they know. I was having lunch yesterday with Scorsese, and something like that. They want to be significant, right? Then people want to appear strong. So if just you lean into it and you can get them to work, right? And so then we want to label what people might be feeling, right? It seems like you got some concerns about this. So people that are looking at this video, thinking about maybe I'll take the class, you might have some concerns about it. It seems like there might be some concerns, You're just saying what they might be feeling, and I'm not going to ask you to jump on I hate those discovery calls that people call them, because you're probably thinking I'm going to push hard on this, right? And that's probably what they're feeling, and if you could reassure, look, we're just going to be talking about this other stuff. I'm not going to push anything, right? So you're setting it aside. And if what we're doing doesn't feel right, you always give them an out. If it doesn't feel right, that's completely, completely fine. And then I like to do the street smart tactical influence approach, right? Where we're going to put the whole thing together. The Voss approach, the FBI, CIA kind of approach, profile mastery, adding in some of the NLP stuff, the NLP language. So usually people only get one aspect. They might be trained in the negotiation aspect. They might be trained in the profiling, the real profiling aspect. They might have NLP or hypnosis training, but very few have all of these, right? And we're going to be putting it together in real world applications, and really proud, put together a really cool field manual, right? It's not that long. You don't want a big, thick dissertation book when you're trying to figure something out. You want standard operating procedure. You want a field manual, right? So that's what we'll be using. And so here's how it works. You might be wondering and having some concerns. It's a 5-day live training at noon, Monday through Friday, June 22nd through the 26th, good Lord willing. And we'll be going over the Chase Hughes profiling system, how to apply that very quickly. Negotiation strategies, how that works, how to do the Chris Voss method. And of course, going back and reviewing the waking hypnosis and the basic NLP, kind of putting it together in a framework that most of my world will understand, but made simple enough that going over the basics makes it even more powerful, right? So the question isn't, can you learn this? I guess the question really is, how much longer are you going to leave this on the table, right? If you have any questions, it says, I put in, drop them in the chat, but I'm on a different computer. This thing's driving me crazy today. Just shoot me an email at drwillhorton@gmail.com or shoot me a text if you have my number, or go to hortonpsychology.com and leave me a question. And it's a lot of fun, and we're doing a big sale if people are interested. And so I'd like to thank you for joining me, but I'm really excited about putting it all together, from the FBI approach, kind of like the intelligence gathering, that's interrogation, negotiation, the intelligence gathering, how to read people to sway them to your idea, bring in the NLP and the hypnosis so it makes it user fast and friendly, and just have a lot of fun with it. So that's kind of the game plan. And that's really it.
What if everything you've been taught about influence was backwards? Imagine for a moment, you walk into a room, you say almost nothing, and yet everyone leans in. That's not charisma, that's code. And when you learn it, really feel how simple it actually is, you'll wonder how you ever talked without it. I'm Dr. Will Horton, psychologist, FBI-trained negotiator, 40 years of NLP and hypnosis, and much more. And now I've cracked the code on tactical influence, and this month I'm handing it to you live. Just notice what happens when you really decide to show up. I hope you haven't given up on being elite. The link is below.
You know how to speak.